Good evening and good to have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, as if the pandemic itself was not enough, we are now having to deal with a cyclone in parts of our country. Cyclone Amphan has hit West Bengal. Massive impact is also being witnessed in Odisha with heavy rainfall and a large scale damage to the trees, to the communication lines, to the kacha houses is also expected. In fact, the landfall of this cyclone took place earlier this afternoon, and since then there's been quite a bit of strong winds in Hooghly, Howrah, Kolkata, many other parts of West Bengal. Odisha itself is also bracing for a bigger impact. Now, 2 people have already died in the state of West Bengal as the damage is being unleashed now by Cyclone Amphan. Over the next few minutes, we are going to get you more details and updates as far as this story is concerned. How ready are we? What could be the possible damage? What has been the damage already on the ground? Let's say good evening to those who are joining us right now. Professor NVC Menon, former member of the NDMA. But first up, I want to go across to Jajati Karan, senior journalist from Bhubaneswar, joining us right now. Thank you so much, Jajati, for speaking to us. Can you give us an update on what is the situation in the state of Odisha as we speak?
Well, as far as Odisha is concerned, the worst is over. We know that when the cyclone made landfall near Sundarban, the wind speed was 185 kilometers per hour. But now that system has gone into the landmass and it has gradually decreased. The cyclone has weakened, and now the wind speed is around 100 kilometers per hour. As far as Odisha is concerned, when the landfall happened, the wind speed was as high as 80 to 100 kilometers per hour in Balesur district, which is the adjoining district. Because of that, the adjoining districts of West Bengal, that is Balesur, Bhadrak, Kendrapada, and to some extent Jagatsinghpur, these are the 4 districts where the damage happened, and most of the damages are of uprootment of trees, damage to the infrastructure like the electric poles, and that of roads and communications. So, what the Special Relief Commissioner just briefed us is that the damage has happened, but the exact quantum of damage that will be accessed by the district administration, and the detailed report will be given in another 24 to 48 hours. Only then it will be known to what extent the damage has been done. But the big question is, was there any big loss to life? No, that didn't happen, because the main motto of the Odisha government was to save lives, and the direct instruction of the Chief Minister of Odisha, Naveen Patnaik, was to have 0 casualty. And they were near that. There is only 1 casualty reported so far from Odisha. That happened, unfortunately, in Bhadrak district, where a 2-month-old baby died when a wall collapsed on him when he was sleeping in his house. So that was the only casualty reported, and the rest of the damage to the infrastructure and all that will be known exactly after the assessment is made by the district administration.
Okay, and to what extent was the evacuation done? Odisha by now has become very used to these annual big cyclones that hit it. There was one last year, a few years ago as well. To what extent were we able to evacuate, keeping in mind that this is also a time where we have a pandemic in the country, and some of those norms also have to be observed, Jajati?
Yes, as you rightly said, Odisha is quite used to dealing with cyclone, and they do very well. After super cyclone in 1999, they have been dealing. Odisha government have been dealing with cyclone quite successful. In last 7 years, there have been 5 cyclones, and the Odisha government have been dealing it quite successfully. And the Odisha model is said to be very successful, which has been emulated in several other parts of the country. So that is the success of the Odisha government in dealing with this disaster. But what happened this time around is that because of the coronavirus crisis, the entire administration was caught up in that, and they had to face this cyclone in addition to that. So that was an additional challenge which the district administration had to face, and that is the reason why they had to make special arrangement, because all these migrant workers who are coming from different other states like Surat and like Gujarat and Maharashtra, they had come in lakhs of numbers, and they had been placed in the cyclone shelters, which are being used as quarantine centers. So the challenge before the Odisha government was to find new place for the vulnerable population who have been affected by the cyclone, and they were shifted. Almost 140,000 people were shifted yesterday to other places, not in the quarantine centers where the migrant workers are already there. And there also in the cyclone center where the migrant workers are been placed, there also they have strictly maintained the coronavirus guidelines, that is maintaining social distance. So this was quite a tricky balance the Odisha government had to face, and seemingly they have done it quite well.
Okay, let me also bring in, our expert right now, Professor Menon. Thank you for speaking with us, former member of the National Disaster Management Authority. Professor Menon, this does add another layer to the challenge. Not only are we dealing with a disaster like a cyclone and what was almost a super cyclone, but also this is coming at time of a pandemic. Now, we are still getting information from West Bengal, where in Kolkata, it's becoming extremely difficult to even get through our own reporters. The power has been shut down, communication lines are completely down and out. Some people who we were able to get through are telling us that this is the worst that they've seen in Kolkata and Bengal in the recent times. Now, how big a challenge does it become for an authority at this point, for a relief authority at this point, to handle this challenge?
I think that one of the most important challenges in a situation when you have a dual disaster, a COVID-19 pandemic, which is also getting superimposed with a super cyclone or almost a super cyclone, a cyclone with such intense wind speeds, with about 155 to 165 kilometer per hour and gusting to about 185 kilometers per hour. This actually is paralyzing the entire response mechanism in the states, West Bengal and Odisha. But at the same time, as you very rightly mentioned, Odisha has been able to contain the impact of the cyclone Phylin by evacuating more than 1 million people in 2013. And, you see that actually right now, with the COVID-19, many people refuse to go into the relief camps. Earlier, evacuation into relief camps was a spontaneous affair where, people could actually get the support of the local communities along with the Panchayati Raj machinery, the civil society organizations. They were able to work together in a seamless manner. But however, with the COVID-19 and with more than 3,000 people affected in West Bengal and about 1,000 people affected in Odisha, actually, there is a fear that going into a relief camp would actually risk people to exposure of getting infected. And I think that is a big, serious challenge. Along with that, you also have the problem that all the responder agencies, Civil Defense, Fire Brigade, the Orissa Disaster Rapid Action Force team, the civil society organizations, the policemen, and government officials, Panchayat Raj functionaries, they are all facing this difficulty of not, having the protective gear to basically secure themselves from a potential risk of infection. So I think it has become extremely challenging. And on top of it, you also have the problem of the migrant workers who have been denied work for more than 8 weeks now, 7 to 8 weeks without any work, and so they do not have any income, they do not have any essential supplies, and so this is actually going to be an extremely major challenge to the administration officials. So I think the government of India and the state governments would need to reach out and provide relief to all those people who are getting impacted by the disaster. And one more important thing is that, in West Bengal, the Sundarbans area actually had faced in May 2009 the cyclone Aila. And so the people were used to it.
Professor Menon, if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to you in just a bit, sir. Yes, Professor Menon, I'll come back to you in just a bit, but I've got Mr. Randeep Kumar Rana, the DIG for operations for NDRF, joining us right now, and he's an extremely busy man, so I just quickly want to ask him a couple of questions. Mr. Rana, thank you so much for speaking with us. Can you give us, the latest on-ground information for West Bengal? What is the situation, especially in cities like Kolkata and Havra and Hubli?
As you are aware, the cyclone had a landfall around 4:30. The process began around 2:30, and the entire dia of the cyclone was on land by 6:30, and it is moving gradually on the forecasted path by IMD, and the wind speed is also gradually decreasing. As of now, it is close to Calcutta, and in Calcutta also the wind speed is quite high. There has been some minor damage, tree uprooting, etc. have been there, but the effect of cyclone is gradually decreasing. There is no report of any large-scale damage or loss of lives so far, though the actual analytical damage assessment will be done in due course. But our teams and other state agencies, they have started working on the ground, cutting the trees, clearing the roads, and trying to restore the services as quickly as possible. And as of now, our 21 teams, they are on the streets of affected areas, clearing the roads, helping the administration to restore the services as quickly as possible.
Okay, Mr. Rana, we also have information that there have been 2 deaths so far, in West Bengal, and while the first part of winds passed by, it's the second one which came in stronger and has caused some amount of damage. Now, what are the initial reports suggesting to you? Which will be the key concern areas in terms of damage?
Like about the death reports, I cannot confirm it to you. It is basically the state government which will be doing it, because as of now, NDRF teams, they are basically busy in restoration, and they are with the community, and they are trying to provide whatever assistance the community requires. And the basic damage which the teams and other agencies which we have observed on the ground, it is basically damage to the kacha hutments and uprooting of the trees. These are the major damages reported so far. And as far as the death reports, maybe by and by, the state administration will be able to comment on that.
Okay, just one question also, because you're with us and this is what we were talking before you joined us. How does the fact that this is a cyclone hitting us in times of corona make the task more difficult for the disaster relief officials on ground?
Undoubtedly, it is a unique situation, and we had started preparing for this kind of situation since last 2 months, because in anticipation that when the corona pandemic is ongoing, if some other disaster happens, be it the cyclone like this or the flood season is approaching, what extra precautions are required to be taken, what extra personal protective equipment is required, some changes in the rescue drills. We have been working on this since last 2 months, and our teams, they were prepared when the forecast of this cyclone came. Our teams, they had completed their training sessions on the additional requirements for the corona pandemic, and what additional actions are required to be taken, and that proved to be quite helpful during last 4 days when our teams, they were moving from one locality to another locality, creating awareness amongst the public. And this process will continue for flood season also, because till that time also the corona pandemic will be ongoing. We are in the process of finalizing our protective equipment for the flood season. And for the community also, what added advisories are required to be given. Our teams, they will be prepositioned in the flood prone areas, and we will continue with the process of generating awareness amongst the community in flood affected areas as well.
Yes, absolutely, because that will also be a big challenge, even once the actual storm and actual cyclone passes over. Mr. Rana, my last question to you about Odisha as well, where we are told the worst is over. Any initial reports on the damage on ground in Odisha?
Yeah, Odisha, there are no reports of any massive damage. Some tree uprootings have been there, and most of those have already been cleared. And in some parts, there is electricity restoration work required to be done. That is going on. That may take some time, but there are no major reports of any damage from anywhere in Odisha.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I understand this is a very busy time for you, but I appreciate that you took out some few minutes to speak to us. I thank you for that. Now, if I can just go back to our experts as well, Professor Menon, you were also alluding to this point and building on the fact that this becomes an added challenge, and the fact will be once the cyclone passes over tonight, that is when we will actually have another big challenge, which is the restoration and relief work, while keeping in mind that some amount of distance has to be maintained. Life is not normal. Half the shops, travel, everything has been clamped down, and that will become a big challenge, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the biggest challenge would be to ensure that the power supply which has been disrupted is restored at the earliest, and the telecom disruption is also corrected, because there have been many fallen towers and fallen transformers which have been also affected. So I think electricity and power supply, as well as the telecom disruptions, need to be restored immediately, and the relief supplies which have to be provided to the people who are in the relief camps, community kitchens and other facilities, with maintaining the physical distancing, is going to be a challenge. But at the same time, the people will have to comply with the instructions from the officials. And I think one of the most important issues which we would need to address is that the containment of waterborne diseases. When there is a cyclone, when there is many of the water sources are getting affected because of contamination with saltwater intrusion and other kind of challenges. We would need to basically make sure that drinking water, pure drinking water, safe drinking water, is available to the people, and that the children, elderly people are provided with necessary medical supplies, which are needed, because there are some people who are actually needing palliative care. In this situation of the COVID-19, there has been this challenge of providing even essential medical supplies to the people. People are afraid to go to the hospitals, even if they have genuine complaints. Many of the elective surgeries have been postponed. So at the same time, you will need to make sure that the people do not actually face any serious health complications. In fact, during the period of the lockdown, in the last seven weeks, we find that more than 5 lakh people have died in the country, which are due to non-COVID deaths. But these, I think, we would need to basically make sure that there is enough supplies available. Medical supplies are available, medical stores are functioning, and hospitals are able to provide the necessary health care. Primary health systems need to be providing the kind of support, and we need to create that kind of capacities. The lockdown period could have been effectively used to ramp up the facilities for ensuring that people are provided with necessary medical support. So I think support for the emergency medical services, restoration of the power supply and telecom, these will become the priorities. And then community kitchens, to provide relief to the people, especially since many of the people who are affected and impacted by this cyclone are people who do not have any income because of the lockdown. They have not been having access to jobs. Many of them are returning from areas where they have been denied work, and they have actually suffered traveling long distances, sometimes walking, sometimes cycling. I think these people have to be provided some support. So I would like to suggest that central government, government of India, as well as state governments, need to basically reach out to the people who are impacted and provide them sufficient resources to make sure that at least they're able to cope with the crisis which we're having now. I must also compliment the Indian Meteorological Department for the way in which they were able to exactly forecast tracking the cyclone movements, and also ensure that they are able to provide
Yes.
sufficient advance warning and get the people evacuated in time. We've had lakhs of people evacuated both in West Bengal and in Odisha, and they are in the relief camps right now. And I think we will be able to see that they are provided with necessary support.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, today when there was a news briefing earlier in the evening, the IMD director also highlighted some of the facts that you were just mentioning of how, and it is true that they have been a lot more on the ball. From day one, the kind of alerts that they had been given has obviously helped us a lot in preparing for this. If I can just quickly go back to Jajati on this point that we were making about the relief from here on, Jajati, what is the kind of preparation that has been done in terms of food and medical care that the government will have to look into for any of those who've lost their shelter at this point?
Well, the Odisha government have been giving food and shelter to the migrant workers who have come back from the other states because of this lockdown, and this has to be just extended to the other shelters where the cyclone victims are being placed. So this would just be an extension of the work they are already doing. So that shouldn't be much of a problem. What the problem is that these people who have been evacuated, most of them, they will be sent back to their villages. And since, as Professor Menon was rightly pointing out, most of them don't have a means of livelihood because of the lockdown. And just providing them relief or food materials for just a couple of days, that won't help. As we know that the cyclone has struck, it will be restored within a few days, because the damage, as it seems, has not been that much as it had happened in earlier cyclones like that of Foni or Phylline. But the livelihood of the people, which has already been badly hit by the lockdown, that has to be restored because of the impact of the lockdown. So these are the two things which has to be balanced by
Yes.
the Odisha government, and to ensure that these people are being fed well because of this lockdown and the impact of the cyclone.
Yes, absolutely. No, you're completely right there, and that's one challenge that any which ways all the states have to tackle, especially Odisha and West Bengal are those two states that are seeing people return in huge numbers, and so their welfare, their well-being, food, shelter, job and money will also be important. Let me actually also go across to Shunando Sarkar, resident editor for TOI Digital, joining us right now. Shunando, what information can you give us about the state of affairs in Kolkata right now?
You are talking about the cyclone, right, Ampan, right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes.
See, the eye of the cyclone, I think, has passed over the city. So I guess Calcutta has seen the worst of it. Hello?
Yes, any reports on the extent of damage that may have been done? We're given to understand that communication lines as well as power lines are down right now.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem in getting updates from the district. But there would be a lot of damage, especially in the areas. In the Sundarbans, which also bore the brunt of super cyclone Ayla in 2009. Those are the areas that would get the maximum amount of damage.
Okay, all right. But in Kolkata, is the power on for most areas now? Any confirmation on two casualties that we have?
No, partial blackout as of now. Power is gradually coming back in some parts of the city, but as of now, most of the city.
Okay.
Hello.
All right, Shunando, thank you so much, Shunando Sarkar, for joining us. I'm going to thank our guests also at this point of time for speaking to us and taking their time out, keeping a very close track. The eye of the cyclone has passed over Kolkata. That's the latest information that we are getting. The NDRF teams are on ground as we speak. About 21 of those teams on ground in Bengal, coordinating and helping people with relief and rescue work. The trees have been uprooted. The power is down and out for most of the city of Kolkata right now. There have been reports of 2 casualties so far, but it's only in a few hours that we will know the actual extent of damage in the city as well as in rural areas because of Cyclone Ampan. Odisha has seen lesser of a damage as was expected, but the bigger challenge now will be to tackle the aftermath, to tackle the relief post the cyclone in times of a pandemic for both of these states, West Bengal as well as Odisha. And we once again put the spotlight on the mega migrants mess that the country is witnessing. The biggest humanitarian crisis, honestly, that we've seen in our country in a really long time. This kind of a mass movement that hasn't taken place. And it's honestly, viewers, if you look at it, there is chaos and confusion. There was a delay in coming out with the policy. The implementation has been disastrous and chaotic, and that will be a big talking point here on the Urban Debate, not just now but even at 9 p.m. But before we get into any kind of debate, I actually want you to simply look at some of the ground reports that we've got. And we're going to talk about the migrants crisis first before we get you the latest on how the lockdown 4.0 is changing our lives and what is opening up and what is not. But first, let's talk about the migrants. And I will begin with a report that we got from Bhiwandi on the outskirts of Mumbai, where despite the fact that there are now trains running, there are state buses running, there are migrants who are still unable to get a clear communication from the government about when they will get any transport and when they will be able to get to their home states, which is why many of them are giving up on waiting 2 months into this lockdown and taking up whatever mode of transport they are getting. In fact, in the last few days, as the trains and number of buses were stepped up, we did see a reduction in the number of people who were taking trucks. But that wasn't the story today. Again, when our reporters went on ground, they saw desperate migrants just climbing onto the trucks wherever it was possible. Here is a report.
Right now, Team Mirror now is at Bhiwandi-Nashik highway, and once again, migrants have started leaving the state in trucks. Now, the question is that if there are buses and trains available which are taking these migrants back to either state borders or to their respective districts, why are these people forced to cover a journey of thousands of kilometers in such trucks and when there is no social distancing whatsoever? Let me try and speak to some of them so that they can tell us why they couldn't wait for the buses and trains. एक बात बताइए, सरकार कह रही है हमने बसेस और ट्रेन्स चला दी हैं और बसेस और ट्रेन्स जा रही हैं, तो आप लोग क्यों बस और ट्रेन का इंतजार नहीं कर पाए और क्यों ट्रक में जाना पड़ा आपको, टेम्पो में?
10 दिन हो गया, ये 10 दिन हो गया, घर पे खाना भी नहीं मिला, कुछ मिल नहीं रहा है। ये महाराष्ट्र में सरकार बस भी नहीं भेज रहा है इसके लिए।
फॉर्म भरा था आपने पुलिस स्टेशन में?
हाँ, फॉर्म भरा था।
अच्छा,
10 दिन हो गया, अभी कुछ जवाब नहीं आया।
अभी तक जमा है, अभी तक फॉर्म जमा है, अभी कोई फोन का इंतजार नहीं, कुछ नहीं।
कितने दिन पहले फॉर्म भरा?
अरे 15 दिन हो गया।
15 दिन?
हाँ, तो हम लोग को क्या जरूरत है इतना परेशान है? खाने की तकलीफ है, बेगारी आदमी काम करके हम लोग खाने नहीं मिल रहा है, कैसे रहेगा?
कहाँ जा रहे हैं? अभी कहाँ जा रहे हैं?
गोरखपुर जा रहा हूँ।
यहाँ पे क्या काम करते थे?
बेगारी काम करता था।
मुझे एक चीज बताइए, जब आप लोग फॉर्म भरने के लिए जाते थे तो कितने दिन में आपका नंबर आया था, कितना इंतजार करना पड़ा था?
वो क्या बोला पुलिस चौकी में, जब नंबर आएगा तो नंबर लिया था, हम लोग को बोला फोन करके बताएगा, अभी तक बताया नहीं, इंतजार करते करते तबीयत खराब हो गई।
थाने में पूछताछ करने?
वो क्या बोला, जब घड़ी घड़ी जाएगा तो बोला मैं फोन करूंगा ना, क्या घड़ी घड़ी परेशान करता है।
अच्छा,
ऐसा बोलता है।
तो ये ट्रक टेम्पो कहाँ से ला रहे हैं आप लोगों को?
खाना ही से ला रहा है, जहाँ भी मैं उधर ही से ला रहा हूँ।
So when this family started their journey from Thane and when they were on this route, they actually met another group, the ones which is actually sitting on the upper floor, and they saw that these people were walking. So these people actually gave them a lift. आप लोगों को ये कहाँ मिला टेम्पो?
यहीं पर।
अच्छा
जी, यहीं।
आप क्या पैदल चल के जा रहे थे?
जी।
कहाँ जा रहे थे?
रायपुर।
रायपुर जा रहे थे। आप लोग क्या काम करते हैं?
ट्रांसपोर्टिंग कंपनी में काम करते थे।
तो आप लोगों ने कुछ पुलिस स्टेशन में फॉर्म वगैरह भरा था?
जी।
कितने दिन पहले फॉर्म भरा?
1 मंथ पहले।
1 मंथ पहले। अच्छा, और ये जो बसेस वगैरह जा रही हैं जो बॉर्डर पे छोड़ रही हैं उसके लिए आप गए थे क्या बस में जाने के लिए?
हम लोग रायपुर से रायगढ़ और आगे रायपुर से और आगे जाएंगे रायगढ़।
अच्छा। नहीं बस वगैरह में जाने की कोशिश की आपने?
नहीं, हम लोग तो कंपनी से बाहर ही नहीं निकलने दिए।
अच्छा,
नहीं निकलने दे रहे थे।
और जो फॉर्म भरा था उसका कोई जवाब आया?
वही तो पता करने के लिए जाने की कोशिश की, लेकिन जाने नहीं दिया हम लोग को, कंपनी से बाहर निकलने नहीं दिया गया।
ठीक है, तो अभी जब आप निकले कहाँ से आए हैं?
भिवंडी ब्लू डार्ट कंपनी।
तो भिवंडी से जब आप निकले तो अभी कुछ आपके पास खाने पीने का प्रबंध है?
नहीं, खाना वाना खा के निकले हैं बस।
अच्छा, कई दिन लग जाएंगे रायपुर पहुंचने में? तो
ज़्यादा दिन नहीं लगेगा, गाड़ी में जाएंगे तो 2 दिन में पहुंच जाएंगे।
खाना वगैरह कुछ साथ में लाए हैं?
नहीं।
वैसे प्रबंध करेंगे, कुछ सोचा है? कुछ बंदोबस्त आपको, मतलब आगे दुकानें वगैरह कुछ हैं नहीं है?
दुकान वगैरह मिलेगा, दुकान तो सब में कुछ खरीदेंगे तो सोचे थे, फल वल कुछ वगैरह वगैरह।
So there are around 20 people in this tempo, and there are many such tempos actually which are now on this highway, despite the fact that there are trains and buses, but the procedure to actually reach those buses and trains is so difficult for the migrants. It's so frustrating. It's so full of hardships that these migrants think that it's better to pay these tempo drivers in thousands and somehow reach their homes. On Bhiwandi-Nashik highway with camera person Sanjay Ranjit, this is Santya for Mirror Now.
Well, that was a story that we got to hear of migrants from Maharashtra hoping to get to their home states up north. Here are a set of visuals that have come in from Lucknow of those who actually made it at least to their home state. These are people who walked all the way from Ludhiana to Lucknow. Their feet are covered in blisters, and they say while they were crossing the borders from one state to the other, nobody really stopped them, not even the cops. They said keep on walking. Instead of providing help, instead of providing shelter as per the UP government's directions, instead of asking them to wait and getting them on a public mode of transport, they were told to just keep on walking. Look at that plight. Look at their feet and the way, they've managed to walk all the way from Ludhiana to Lucknow. And Vinay, we are flooded with such stories in the past many days. Something that we are just not able to address.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are war heroes, and their war is not a conventional war. Their war is against poverty and deprivation, and they should be treated like war heroes. I think the country should wake up and realize that these are the people who have kept our systems running. We've been saying this for the last 3 days, and even at the cost of us being called repetitive and being going around saying the same thing again and again. I think it needs to be said many more times, because the kind of stuff that we've heard in the last 15 days or so is just unbelievable. You showed a story just now of people with blisters on their feet. There's another story of a 15-year-old girl who took her ailing father on the back of a bicycle from till Darbhanga from Delhi. How much worse can this get? And I'm, it's a little shocking that it's only today that the country's finance minister gave a bit of an admission that they kind of slightly got this wrong and they didn't anticipate the level of the problem that we are seeing on the streets that week.
Yes, in fact, we're just going to play out that report in just a bit. That heartbreaking story of a 15-year-old who got out on a cycle with her injured father, because that's essentially what it is. And, for many people in this country who are watching this channel right now, these are things that won't even strike you. If there is a problem that we are facing, we know where to approach the authorities, how to get our permissions. The trains are now working for us. The domestic flights are going to open soon. But unfortunately, there's a large percentage of these people who have been completely left ignored. And what we are seeing actually is, politics instead being played. Policies that keep changing. In fact, I just want to also highlight how the policies have changed as far as the trains are concerned. First, For the longest time, the central government said that they don't want, they're not going to run any trains. Trains are out of the question. Everybody stays where they are. The state governments have to ensure they're taken care of, give them food, give them shelter. The onus is on state governments. When they began to see that after a month, 6 weeks, the migrants were now getting impatient. They wanted to go home. The states were not able to take on the load of so many of them together. Then on May 1st, they gave in to the pressure and said, okay, we will start trains. Then came the whole fight that happened between the fare. The first set of guidelines actually said that the states are going to make the list, get the tickets from the center and collect the money from the people. It's only after outrage that the center came out with a clarification saying, no, we will and the states will bear the cost, which even now in many places is not taking place, or the people are being told that you will be reimbursed. Imagine that. The government is saying, we will reimburse you. First get home somehow, and in 15-20 days we will process it and give you that money. Then came the political blame game, where Railway Minister accused the state governments of blocking the trains and saying that states like Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, mind you, all governments which are run by opposition parties are blocking trains and are not giving permission, to which these states turned back and said, that's not true at all. In fact, here is a list of the trains that we have sought and permissions that we have given, NOC letters that we have given for trains to pass by our states and go into the neighboring states. So that one fight took place. Then the center came out and said, okay, there is too much of confusion. The states can't figure it out between themselves. So now you don't need permission from the receiving state. Only the state which is sending these people is actually going to get the permission and send the list to the central government. And Vinay, now we're given to understand that there is perhaps more internal conversation happening at the center to even change that, because obviously none of this has worked so far.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they've realized it just way too late that none of this is working. And I think you started off by drawing a parallel, and that parallel must be drawn again. Most of the cities and people who live in towns are feeling very happy and excited. The flights are resuming and normal passenger trains have already started running, 15 of them, and another set will start running from June 1. But there is a part of India, and more than half of that India, which we just don't bother about. I mean, you spoke about politics being played between states and the center. There is another politics happening at the borders of Uttar Pradesh, where about 1,000 buses have been parked with both parties slugging out, trying to blame each other for not helping the migrants cross the states. I mean, if at a time like this, when we had a national emergency, we can't have parties come together and actually work for the only people who matter in this country, God knows when they will actually come together and do that. I mean, this has been politics at its shameful worst, and we've seen the worst kind of slugfest that you could imagine over people who really should deserve every bit of the help that we can all give institutionally and individually as well, Tanvi.
Yes, and I want to now bring out two specific case studies, two stories of immense amount of pain and struggle, and honestly, it's also about love. How people are looking out for their own family members, while they are being completely failed by the nation, by the country. The first one is the one, Vinay, that you mentioned about the 15-year-old. We're calling her the savior daughter, because she undertook a big challenge to actually travel for a huge amount of distance, hundreds of kilometers, on a cycle from Darbhanga to Delhi, on a cycle with her injured father. Here is that report. Okay, in fact, those are the visuals that we're getting of that story to you. And this is the story of a 15-year-old girl. Imagine that, viewers. How many 15-year-olds do you and I really know who will do something like that? To step out in 45 degrees temperature for hundreds of kilometers together on a cycle. Not just this, there is another story from Maharashtra, that of a grieving father, a migrant who stuck here, stranded here, while his wife was pregnant back home, 7 months pregnant, and she had an unfortunate miscarriage. And now he just wants to get to his wife. He just wants to be there for her as she goes through this challenging time, and he doesn't know how to get there. This is a story that Santya got for us of a grieving father who's trying whatever he can, running from pillar to post to get on some kind of transport to go home. Take a look.
गांव में थे, उसके पेट में बच्चा था। परसों उसका पेट दर्द हुआ, 7 महीने का था। पेट दर्द हुआ तो रो रहे थे, हमसे फ़ोन कर रहे जल्दी आ जाओ। फिर हमने पास में फ़ोन किया, रिश्तेदार लेके गए, बच्चा ख़त्म हो गया पेट में। ऑपरेशन किया उसका, तो ऑपरेशन किया 2 दिन अस्पताल में थी फतेहपुर में, वहाँ से जवाब दे दिया, कानपुर लेके गए। तो हमको गाँव जाना, वो बोलती एक बार आ जाओ देख लें, बस नहीं जा पा रहे। 3 दिन से घूम रहे हैं, ना खाना अच्छा लग रहा है ना पानी। पटाल है ऐसे। सेठ भी इधर पैसा मांग रहे थे, आज 6-7 दिन से नहीं दे रहा। 5 महीने का पेमेंट दबा के रखा है।
कितने महीने का पेमेंट? 5 महीने का?
हाँ, जनवरी से पूरा पड़ा है, आज तक का नहीं दिया।
क्या काम करते हैं आप?
शटरिंग का, बिल्डिंग लाइन का।
और 5 महीने की आपको तनख्वाह नहीं दी है सेठ ने?
पहले फरवरी में अपने गांव चले गए थे, उसको दिक्कत थी तो यहाँ चले गए थे, तो कार्ड धोखे से जेब में डाल के ले गए थे। तो कार्ड के बिना नहीं दिया, फिर आए, फिर बोला ठीक अगले महीने में कर देंगे। अगले महीने करके आज तक नहीं दिया है। अब मांगते तो 1500 देता बस खाना खाने के लिए, और नहीं देता। कल चौकी भी गए थे, लेकिन चौकी में पुलिस वाले ने पूछा सर हमको गांव जाना, फार्म वार्म भरना है, तो बोले यहाँ मत जाओ, अंदर जाओ, वहाँ से काम होगा। उन्होंने भी वापस कर दिया।
पत्नी अकेली है फतेहपुर में या कोई है?
नहीं है घर में, मम्मी भी एक्सपायर हो गई, कोई नहीं है घर में, अकेली है वो। बस टोला पड़ोस के सब कर रहे हैं, कोई नहीं घर में। कल मम्मी भी जहर खा लिया था, एक्सपायर हो गया, तो उनका घर में कोई नहीं हमारे, हम अकेले हैं।
कब से कोशिश कर रहे हैं आप जाने की?
हम कोशिश अभी तक नहीं किए हैं, लेकिन जब ये हादसा हो गया तो कोशिश बहुत ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं कि हमको कोई साधन मिल जाए, कैसे भी पहुंच जाए घर अपने। बस एक बार देख ले, आखिरी बार बस।
कुछ फॉर्म वगैरह भरा आपने पुलिस स्टेशन में कहीं जाके?
नहीं, हमको उम्मीद नहीं थी गांव जाने की, आशा नहीं थी कि अभी हम गांव जाएंगे।
अच्छा।
सोचे लॉकडाउन आगे महीने में खुलेगा, अगले महीने में यही आशा में बैठे रहे, लेकिन अब ऐसी प्रॉब्लम आ गई कि जाना पड़ रहा है।
That was Om Prakash, desperate to get back to his wife, take care of his wife. However, he doesn't know how he will do that. He just told Santya that he's not been paid for many months now, and he has no money, nothing in his pocket. Then there was a story that we got to you of Jyoti, a 15-year-old who with her father cycled for 7 straight days. They had no money either. They were dependent on whatever food people were offering them. Good Samaritans that they've met on the way who helped them, who gave them some food, while she just paddled on, cycled on for 7 straight days. And then there are those who get beaten up by the authorities. If they get a little impatient, if they start asking questions about where is their train, when will they be put on a train, they get beaten up. And this is the story that we are getting to you from Tiruvallur, here in Tamil Nadu, where 4 migrant workers were trying to return home. They were beaten up in Tiruvallur. They allegedly were beaten by a brick kiln owner and his men because they wanted to go. And this man didn't want his workers to go home. Nearly 300 workers from Odisha, Uttar Pradesh and Chhattisgarh have been working for more than 6 months at this brick kiln in Tiruvallur. The police were alerted by the relatives of the workers from other states. Imagine that. From other states, people were calling up the police and saying, please go and help them. Pramod is joining me with more details. Pramod, has any action been taken against this brick kiln owner?
Well, the Tiruvallur district is like extremely notorious for this kind of like inhuman activities and human rights violations, especially at brick kiln. We have brought out so many stories about bonded laborers to issue from there as well. But unfortunately, this time also, it doesn't seem like effective action has been taken because police claim that the brick kiln owner is still absconding and only one person who attacked them have been arrested. 2 people are admitted to the hospital. 6 people were very badly injured, and totally 20 people apparently were hit by these men because they want to leave. It seems the migrant workers very clearly mentioned that they want to go because they were not paid any wage since March 25th. And whatever food they got as ration from the government, and they've been supposed to be paid 250 rupees per week, not one day, but per week. And even that money was not given to them, but they were made to work from 6 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. in the evening. They were afraid for their lives, their family lives, and they would just want to leave. But unfortunately, they were very badly beaten up, and now they are being treated. And the harsh part here, just like you asked, is that they are still being, sheltered in the brick kiln only. But the authorities have claimed that they will get a train and which will take them back to their respective states by May 23rd.
All right, Pramod, thanks so much for bringing us that story. We're going to slip into a very short break right now, viewers. Now, on the other side, we put the spotlight on India opening up industries, salons, bakery shops. As they open up, how is it working out on ground in our big cities? That's the focus. Stay with us. Welcome back. It was day 3 of lockdown 4.0. Well, it's a lockdown in a sense because not the normal kind of movement is allowed, but it's also a phase of a lockdown with many activities are allowed. Shops are now beginning to open in most parts of our country. Industries are now beginning to function. But as the industries restart their work, the one big challenge which you knew will happen in many parts is that they don't have workers. The migrants have already set out. They ran out of patience. They ran out of government help. They ran out of money. And they have now started their journey on their way back to their home states. Here is a report from Delhi, where you see a similar problem now cropping up.
Day before yesterday, Delhi government announced the resumption of the factories all across the national capital. We are reporting from Mangolpuri industrial area, and we are standing in one of the factories, which is MCB box manufacturing unit. We are just going inside to see whether the work has been resumed or not. There are 4 laborers who are workers of this manufacturing unit. They are working. But if you see the whole hall, which usually carries around 50 to 60 laborers at a time, but you can see it's a completely vacant. Just 4 laborers are there who are working as of now. There is another machines which are, there's a group of machines which are lying over here. They are all vacant because there is no labor for that. This is packing material. These packing materials, these are boxes, are also lying there. So here around 30 workers usually work, but nobody is turning up so that the packing material, the packing work could be resumed. There are other rooms as well. My video journalist Azaz is showing you. This room is also usually filled with the laborers and workers. There are other rooms as well of this complete whole factory. But just 4 laborers, you are seeing that they are on their job. However, the whole factory is vacant. So this way, the work has been resumed. Definitely, the factory owners are suffering and they are complaining that most of the migrants, most of the laborers have already gone back to their hometown. So it is a difficult time for them to resume their work. With video journalist Azaz Hussain, I am Alok for Mirror Now.
We've been also talking about this, and now we had reports, from Jammu, from Delhi, and many other parts where businesses are starting, and of course they are now beginning to face a shortage of workers in these industries.
Yes, and 2 very critical things. I mean, in all the reports that our reporters have filed today, the factory owners are saying that they're facing a problem of labor, something that we've been pointing out for a long time on how all these people, the exodus that we've seen from outside the cities are assets for us, and they are the people who run the industries and the factories for us. And there is one other very important point, Tanvi, that some Tamil Nadu industry associations have just pointed out, which is this, and that's something that's applicable across India, and the point is, that they're saying that even if you try and hire local people, it takes a long time to actually train them. And remember, training is something that is not just necessary for high-tech engineers. Even workers who pack boxes or just staple things in a factory floor also need to be trained, because it takes that much longer for them to get used to the idea of how to work on an assembly line or a function on the floor. And most other people who are not working there or who are not part of that milieu don't know that. So they are now saying that having suffered losses for almost 3 months because of the lockdown, they will have to face another month or a half or so to actually train the new people who they may try and replace, even if those numbers will be almost less than half of what they would have normally got. So you can see the impact of that migrant exodus that's happening, and the cascading effect of this that will hit our economy very, very badly. Not just the factories and the industries, but also the service sector, Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely. Vinay, thanks so much for joining us, with your views as we bring out different angles and different kind of stories for this lockdown, the migrants crisis, the industries opening up, Indian cities opening up. In fact, I want to bring two more reports to our viewers very quickly. The first one is about salons opening up. So much of conversation has happened about salons being shut. When will they open? And if they do, how will it work out? Here is a glimpse of how it is working out.
Lockdown 4.0. So how has it really been in Karnataka? Let's give you an understanding. We're here at a salon, at a beauty parlor, and I'd like to start by showing you the kind of arrangements that have been made and the kind of safety equipment that's been put in place. To begin with, we've just entered and you can see that there's a hand sanitizer over here. It is in fact, with a foot pedal to ensure that there's no contact when people start to use the sanitizer. Now, apart from that, also what is mandated by the government as per the SOP is the head apron that you can see over here, the temperature check, also the thermal screening that has to be done. Apart from which, in fact, water has also been made available over here for all the people who are walking in. Now, the most interesting aspect to this entire thing is while you've seen PPE kits in hospitals, you may have seen it in clinics. But can you imagine that in salons too, PPE kits are in fact being used? Yes. So this is in fact, being done to ensure that there is no contact, and minimal contact is maintained between the client and also, of course, the staff. And also this is imperative to remember that all of this is being done to curtail the spread of coronavirus and to ensure that services go on without, of course, much hassle. I'd like to quickly get in a word over here from, this person here who's actually getting a haircut. So I'd like to ask you, so this is a very unique experience for you as well. So first of all, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this?
Actually, when I enter this salon, I feel scary looking at this person. I am the regular customer over here. I am visiting more than 4 to 5 years. He is my regular person who used to do haircut. When I got entered, first they treated me.
But here is a report that we wanted to highlight, viewers, as a word of caution. While in parts where the number of cases are low and the threat is lesser, it's all right to start opening up. But in parts which are still containment zones, which are sealed zones, because of the high number of cases in that area, we still have to ensure that lockdown is fully implemented and rules are followed. Take a look at this report that Disha filed for us.
We are here in Nehru Nagar area, which is in the city of Mumbai. And as you can see that BMC starting today has completely sealed this particular slum along with the 6 other major slums in this ward that we are talking about, Andheri, Vilepal and Jogeshwari areas. But on the ground level, we are completely seeing violation of the containment measures that the BMC has really undertaken. As we can see that totally sealed essentially means that people's movement has to be completely restricted. But here on the ground level, we are looking at that how people are moving in and out of the total sealed area zone. BMC had very categorically stated that in this particular ward, if we talk about Nehru Nagar and other 6 major slums, more than 500 positive cases have come to light. And looking at this, of course, increase in the number of cases, BMC decided to completely seal these particular slums for the period of 14 days. But on the ground level, we are looking at a total violation. In fact, BMC had also assigned a team leader for every slum who can deliver essentials at their doorsteps. But on the ground level, we are looking at a complete violation. Of course, we are not even looking at a police presence outside these sealed areas as of now. So this remains to be the biggest challenge here, because 80% of the positive cases that we are looking at in the city of Mumbai, they come from the congested areas like these, slum areas like these. And here we are looking at people completely flouting the lockdown measures, people completely flouting the containment measures. With video journalist Sachin Yeram, this is Nisha Shah reporting here for Mirror Now from Mumbai.
This is not all right, and the Mumbai civic body and the Maharashtra government has to ensure that this doesn't take place. Mumbai is the city with the highest number of cases, viewers. We cannot afford these kind of violations, this is how the cases will then multiply. Time for a quick break. On the other side, we take on the politicians for the dirty level of politics that is being played at the cost of our migrants. Stay tuned.